Hey guys, it's Abby and Tim, and we're here to answer some questions you guys have about our ministry and why we do what we do. I sing because the Lord has given me that talent, but to backtrack with all of that, I grew up in church. My dad was a youth pastor for years. My mom was involved in the praise team, the choir, and it was just always a part of our family and everything that we did. We always were listening to music. We were always singing, goofing off, having a good time. And so I've always loved it, I guess, from the beginning. But I grew up in church, and I love the Lord. I'm thankful for my salvation. And it wasn't hard in knowing that I needed to do Christian music and go down that path, because obviously the talent is from the Lord. So why not give it back to Him and lead people to Him through it? Singing has always been a dream of mine, and I guess turning it into a ministry, but not just a dream of mine. But once Tim and I got married, he was on me all the time about you need to make a CD, you need to make a CD, you need to try this out. And it's always been a dream of mine, but there was a turning point in our lives, really not just mine, that really pushed us into starting this ministry.
With our situation with Sawyer, it really brought us to a point where we had to rely on God and put our faith and trust in Him. And through that, it kind of led us to some doors opening. And when those doors opened and people were put in our paths, and that was writing on the wall for us. And again, this has been a dream of hers and something I've really pushed her to do from the very beginning. And this is something that we feel that's where God's leading, and there's no place like being in His will, and that's where you always want to be.
Back in, I think it was 2012, when we were pregnant with Sawyer, everything was fine, everything looked good. We had our ultrasound at 20 weeks, and we found it as a boy, and we were excited and a little bummed because it wasn't a girl. We have our girl now, but Tim was a big baby, so our doctor wanted us to have a third trimester ultrasound scan just to make sure the baby wasn't going to be overly huge and we weren't going to have any issues with all of that. So we went in at 29 weeks, I think it was, and had an ultrasound scan, just a regular routine ultrasound done. And the ultrasound tech kind of looked at us funny and said she had to go get the doctor. And we started to I don't think Tim was with me, actually. It was just my mom. But I started to freak out a little bit. I knew something was wrong. And my mom was telling me it was okay. There wasn't going to be anything wrong. And she sent us into the doctor. And he basically gave us a long list of possibilities and told us that Sawyer had fluid on the brain. And they thought that he might be missing a portion of his brain. And not to worry and not to freak out about anything just yet, but we would have to go through a series of tests, and we would need to see some specialists. And so we quickly scheduled all of that, and that thus began the twice-a-week visits to Cincinnati. And we had a ton of tests ran, and basically what they told us was that Sawyer is missing his corpus callosum, which is the middle part of your brain that connects the left to the right side. And they told us with that there was the possibility that he wouldn't make it once he was born, and they did tell us that if he did, he probably would be on a feeding tube, he wouldn't be walking, he wouldn't be talking. So the outlook for his life was very dark and we knew that no matter what God gave us, He wasn't going to give us more than we could take. But it was hard. It was very difficult for us to think about raising a child with special needs, and even thinking about the possibility of him not making it past a few hours into his life. And at that point, we had two choices. We could either pray about it and completely turn it over to God and give it to Him, or we could sit and sulk and be upset and be angry. And don't get me wrong, I had my moments where I just questioned God. And I mean, I can remember my mom at one point, she said, Abby, it's okay, just yell out to God and say, why are you doing this? Like, what, and it took me removing myself from it and not asking God, why are you doing this to me? But what are you doing? What are you doing for us? And what are you going to make out of this? And we finally came to a point, and Psalm 139 we read all the time, every day, every night. And we just clung to the fact that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. No matter what, He knew us before we were even in the womb. And no matter what, He has our life in His hands. And we totally clung to that with Sawyer and what we were going through. And now fast forward 3 years, and Sawyer's been here, and he's a handful, and he eats a lot, and he walks, and he talks a lot. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. He's still missing that part of his brain, but the Lord completely healed him in a way that we never even thought was possible. And so with all of that, I think that's why we started this ministry, and that's why it's taking off. And that was where our heart came from, and that's why we wanted to do this.
Through life's journey and what we've been through, this has become a platform for us to share through some testimony and life journey, and then reach out to others through the abilities that He's given Abby and reaching others for Christ. And ultimately, that's it's not about selling X amount of CD shirts or anything like that. That just helps promote Jesus Christ to everybody else that we reach out to.
Moving forward, I think ultimately we just want everybody to know that it's not about us. It's not about Abby Howard. It's not about any of the band members. It's not about my husband. It's not about my kids. Ultimately, it's about Jesus Christ and the life that He's given us and the opportunities He's giving us. And we can't pass that up. We can't act like it's not God. We can't act like we're not here and our purpose on this earth is not to worship Him, because it is. And so just moving forward, that's all we want. All we want is to worship our King, our Savior, no matter where we're at, no matter when it is, and we want you to join us and do that too.